Hello, and welcome to the first episode of the Talking Points podcast. Hopefully this time my computer doesn't crash and break the footage like it did last time. But today I'm going to be taking the political compass test to establish my place in the on the political spectrum. I think it's probably the best way I can set the tone for this podcast, I guess is probably a good way of putting it. I know there are a lot of reasons that the political compass isn't a perfect test, but I don't know if there's anything better, and I honestly don't think there is anything better. So I'm going to be taking the test and talking about each question in relative detail. um, for anybody that has just stumbled across this podcast randomly, this the Talking Points podcast is a podcast where I talk about politics with special guests on about once a week. About once a week. I haven't completely finalized the schedule, but around one or two times a week there should be a new episode. So I think that should be good for the intro. I've never done a podcast, which is probably pretty obvious, but this podcast is available on YouTube. It's available on Spotify. It's available on Google Podcast. It's available on Anchor, Breaker, Pocket Casts, Radio Public. Um, that should be it for now. I'm working on getting some more distributors, but for this episode, it might be better to watch on YouTube since there are some visual elements. But I will be reading out each question, so you don't need to switch over to YouTube if you're on Spotify or something. But I'm gonna switch over to my screen and we can start the quiz. Take the test. Okay. Before taking the test, please note that this isn't a survey and these aren't questions, they're propositions. To question the logic of individual ones that irritate you is to miss the point. Some propositions are extreme and some are moderate. That's how we can show you whether you lean towards extremism or moderation on the compass. Your responses should not be overthought. Some of them are intentionally vague. Their purpose is to trigger reactions in the mind, measuring feelings and prejudices rather than detailed opinions on policy. Um, I really like that it says that because in the video where Ben Shapiro takes this test, you can tell he did not read that part. And I think it was like the first or second question he made fun of, which is obviously stated. It's trying to trigger something in your brain. It's not a stupid question. So, alright. If economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interests of transnational corporations. I have to go strongly agree on this one. I think that benefiting the corporations rather than the collective people is just going to put us backwards and make us rely more on the corporations, which is backwards. I'd always support my country, whether it was right or wrong. Strongly disagree. Um, I don't support my country currently, so no, I wouldn't agree with that. Nobody chooses their country of birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. I would say disagree to an extent. Obviously, you can be proud of if you were born somewhere, but don't be like really annoying about it. This one isn't too political, but um, yeah, it's not foolish to be proud of it. I think if you were born in a third world country that's quickly advancing or something similar, that's fine. If you're born in America and you're like, I love guns, I'm proud of my country because we have guns, that's stupid, but otherwise, that's probably fine. Our race has many superior qualities compared with other races. Strongly disagree. This is obviously just blatant racism. Next question. The enemy of our enemy is my friend. Or the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Disagree. They can be your friend. They aren't always. For example, if I didn't like, let's say I'm the United States, I want to, this is completely hypothetical, but I want to bomb France, and the UK also wants to bomb France. In that situation, I wouldn't immediately consider the UK an ally. Again, it's just a hypothetical, but military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. Disagree. No, I'm gonna click agree. International law is just, it's not. It's, international law is something there for very little reason. It is broken all the time. If someone else breaks it, um, yeah, feel free to break it, but that's like a bunch of war crimes. I feel like they should definitely improve on the international war crime system or whatever. I think it's not too hard to understand. Don't think I'm being too confusing. There's now a worrying fusion of information, and entertainment. Sorry. Strongly disagree. I think if you can fuse information with entertainment, unless it's biased information, it should be completely fine. It should be encouraged, even because it's easier to teach children, small children, who otherwise would be hard to teach. I don't see the downsides to any of that. Page 2. Now, all these are about the economy, okay? People are ultimately divided by class more than nationality. Strongly agree, yeah. This is definitely how it should be. I feel like if it's asking how it is right now, I feel like we're divided about equally between class and nationality, but either way, I feel like it should definitely be that we're more divided by class, or we are more divided by class and nationality, even though equity is inequality in general is just a good idea. I feel like if we were to be separated more by one or the other, it'd be class. I'd rather be separated by class, because by nationality, it's again just racism. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. Disagree. Unemployment rates harm the individual, which I believe is more important than the collective. Although they're both, I mean, the individual creates the collective. But when I say collective, I mean like the collective country, not the collective of all the working class people. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. Strongly agree. There's a lot of stuff happening with Nestle and people, which, yeah, we need to regulate that a lot more, obviously. Next question. From each according to his ability to each according to his need is a fundamentally good idea. Strongly agree. I believe that's a Marx quote. And again, Ben Shapiro said disagree on this one, which is crazy. I feel like everyone who has a brain has to click agree. But the freer the market, the freer the people. I need to refresh my definition of free market. Free market capitalism is an economic system that maximizes supply and demand forces. Prices, costs, and wages are self-regulated by participants in the market. Okay, yeah, disagree. There are a lot more factors in being free. There's a lot of different definitions of free. So you can't really say the freer the market, the freer the people, because it's not the only factor. It's a sad reflection on our society that something as basic as drinking water is now a bottled, branded consumer product. Again, Nestle or any water-based company like Dasani, companies like those. Yeah, it's a requirement to be able to live. I know someone personally who was hospitalized because they didn't drink water, although they could have. It's not that they didn't have access to it, but if we didn't have access to it, if someone didn't have money, didn't have access to water, they would be hospitalized or die, which is obviously bad. We should make stuff like that free. It's a basic human need. Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. Agree. Yeah. Again, it's a basic commodity. Actually put strongly agree. It's a basic commodity. We need it to survive, almost. Obviously, there's homeless people that are living, but not in good conditions at all. Um, it's just better if if we give everyone free housing, stuff like that. Of course, that's huge systematic change. I don't expect that to be happening in the U.S. anytime soon, but I'd like it to happen. A lot of these are in the distant future. If I want them to happen, it'd be in the distant future just because of how messed up the current state of the country is. It'd be hard to, I guess, change America that drastically in such a small amount of time. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to their society. Yeah, I strongly agree. Yeah. I really don't like seeing those like Sigma male rhyme set people who are always like worshipping Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos because like, oh, he made his own money. Look at you've seen that one image where he was in the garage. That means he built it all by himself. I don't really care. He still has way too much money. All of the billionaires still have way too much money, and honestly, it doesn't matter how they make it, but it's especially bad if they just manipulate the stock market, manipulate cryptocurrency, especially recently. But protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade. I need to search this one up again. Theory or practice of shielding a country's domestic industries from foreign competition by taxing imports. Uh, Disagree. I feel like taxing imports is just a way to stop imports, which just messes with the economy. I feel like I don't understand too much about these questions, by the way. Um, I'm not very smart politically, even though I'm doing an entire podcast. So if I misunderstand a question, definitely let me know. However possible, I have the Talking Points Twitter account on the screen. It's at underscore Talking Points underscore. Let me know there or comment on the YouTube video, whatever, if I get any of these wrong, if I misunderstand any of them. The only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver a profit to its shareholders. That's all a company needs to do right now, but definitely not all it should do. It should, the primary focus of a company should be to improve life just in general. That's a very simple question. The rich are too highly taxed. Strongly disagree. This is actually pretty relevant with the AOC dress recently. Uh, AOC Alexandria Ocasio Cortez recently wore a dress that just said "tax the rich," which I really like the dress. Obviously, tax the rich doesn't really have too much to do with the question. It's just a current event happening. I've seen a lot of people hate on it. I don't know why, but well, I know why. It's because they're conservatives. But yeah, it's very popular with Bernie Sanders supporters. It's one of his biggest selling points, I guess. That's not really the term that I'm trying to find, but Yeah, disagree. Rich are definitely not too highly taxed. We need to tax them way more than they are right now. Those with the ability to pay should have access to higher standards of medical care. Strongly disagree. Everyone should have equal access to medical care. I believe in Medicare for all, and I believe that everyone should have equal healthcare if possible. Although, in an ideal society where everyone can get the healthcare they need as soon as possible, I guess it's probably fine to have those who can pay have higher standards. Although in that scenario, there isn't such thing as higher standards because of the fact that everything is like all the healthcare is immediate and as soon as possible. So, yeah, strongly disagree. Governments should penalize businesses that mislead the public. Strongly agree. They already do that. I don't know if they do that enough. I'm not very well versed in this subject, but I do know there are a lot of like things that companies do to trick the public and advertising and everything. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predator multinationals to create monopolies. I agree. Yeah, we don't want monopolies because monopolies are just bad for. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. If one company owns all of one thing, they have no competition. It's just a bad thing for the free market. Abortion, when the woman's life is not threatened, should always be illegal. Strongly disagree. Abortion should always be legal, no matter what, no matter how far in. Unless you're literally giving birth, then yeah, it should be legal. Especially in cases of rape and incest, which apparently the Texas senator disagrees with because they recently passed a bill where after the 6th week, you are not allowed to get an abortion. And there's no exceptions for rape or incest or anything. Unless I think maybe if the woman's life is in complete danger, although I'm not 100% sure on that. All authority should be questioned. Strongly agree. Uh, I feel like this is a very. I feel like everyone would put strongly agree because the conservatives are always saying, like, oh, we should question Joe Biden, but don't question Donald Trump. And right now, Joe Biden's the president, so they would put strongly agree because they believe Joe Biden should be questioned. And I believe that everyone should be questioned. Yeah. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Um, agree to an extent. I think that. Okay, I'm gonna put disagree because I would put neutral if it was an option here. But this is another. I believe this is another Marxist ideal. Um, it's in an ideal society, which a lot of these are in an ideal society. Um, prison systems are more focused on rehabilitation than punishment. So I believe no. Although if we do have to punish them, if like right now in the current system, I feel like yeah. Although like exceptions are like the death penalty, and I guess that's pretty much it. Taxpayers should not be expected to prop up any theaters or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. I am not completely sure what this question is asking, but I think disagree because, uh, oh no, I put agree here. Um, I feel like taxpayer money shouldn't be wasted like that. I feel like we should be spending it on things more useful and not more military funding or stuff like this, stuff that can't survive. and we know can't survive. Schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. Agree. I feel like school, well, in our current school system, most of it is not useful in any way anyway. But I feel like it should also just, there are a lot of reasons people don't have or shouldn't have to go to school all the time. And I know a lot of schools do make it to where if you miss a certain amount of school, you have to retake the grade, or you have to like restart the entire grade that you missed. All people have their rights, but it is better for all of us that different sorts of people should keep to their own kind. Strongly disagree. This is another racist question, a very thinly veiled racist question. Good parents sometimes have to spank their children. I strongly disagree. No, there's no reason to. It doesn't do anything. Again, that's punishment over rehabilitation, which isn't a good thing, although this is to a much lesser extent. It is natural for children to keep secrets from their parents. Strongly agree. That's self explanatory. Yeah, I feel like everyone does, and privacy is a good thing for everyone, children and adults alike. Possessing marijuana for personal use should not be a criminal offense. Strongly agree. It's not in most places anymore, which is cool. But again, that's pretty self explanatory. Marijuana isn't a dangerous drug, and illegalizing it doesn't stop people from using it. It just stops people from using safe marijuana. There's a lot of things about marijuana possession that making it illegal is a bad thing for. The prime function of schooling should be to equip the future generation to find jobs. I feel like agree, because in our current society, yes, that's probably what it should be. Helping them find jobs, helping them um just live properly, like taxes, how to do your taxes, how to drive should be part of normal school instead of having it be a separate school. People with serious inheritable disabilities should not be allowed to reproduce. Strongly disagree. Uh, it's if they're capable of reproducing, let them, because that's just taking away their rights. The most important thing for children to learn is to accept discipline. Again, same as the um, spanking question. Disagree. Again, self-explanatory. Accepting discipline is a that's actually a horrible thing for children. Now that I think about it, is making them accept discipline, which is it also goes with the ability to question authority question earlier. There are no savage and civilized people. There are only different cultures. Strongly agree. Another thinly veiled racist question. If you put disagree, you're just racist. Those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society support. Disagree. This is a huge question that I'm not going to go far into, but yeah, you shouldn't need to. I'm not even going to go into that one. When you are troubled, it's better not to think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things. Disagree. Strongly disagree, even. You should confront that troubling situation as best as possible. First generation immigrants can never be fully integrated within their new country. Another racist question. I personally know first generation immigrants who are fully integrated in their new country, and even if they weren't, what is that? What bad does that do? It's just they're going to within one generation, even if they weren't fully integrated, but they are fully integrated. They are able to be fully integrated. So it's just another racism question. What's good for the most successful people, successful corporations, is always ultimately good for all of us. Again, Nestle, big corporations always do things to harm us, the people, in order to gain a profit. Like Amazon does that by making their workers pee in bottles. Yeah, that's obviously disagree. Strongly disagree, rather. No broadcasting institution, however independent its content, should receive public funding. Disagree. I don't know how political this is. I've never really seen this being argued, but I feel like publicly funded broadcasting is generally good. Um, a lot of news stations, I'm pretty sure, local news stations are funded publicly through taxes, and a lot of children's broadcasting services are also publicly funded. And public funding is also very vague. That could mean taxes, and that could mean crowdfunding or whatever. I'm going to assume it means taxes, which in that case, yeah, I disagree. It's fine to receive public funding. Next page. Our civil liberties are being excessively curbed in the name of counterterrorism. Agree. Let me refresh my definition on this one too. Counterterrorism, also known as anti-terrorism, incorporates the practice military tactics, techniques, and strategy that government, military, law enforcement, business, and intelligence agencies use to combat or prevent terrorism. Yeah, counterterrorism is a lot of the time harming our liberties as people. I'm pretty sure. Again, this might be another question that I'm just not understanding correctly. I'm not very good at understanding a lot of these. A significant advantage of a one-party state is that it avoids the arguments that delay progress in a democratic political system. Disagree. I think argument is a good thing, and having everyone agree on one thing probably isn't. It's probably a better thing to argue so you get all of the points of view, even if you aren't a centrist, which I'm not. But if you're like, if everybody in the country voted Democrat, then I mean, again, I think that'd be a better thing for the country. But here, I'll rephrase it. If everybody in the country voted Republican, that'd be a bad thing because we'd not have the time to argue about it. We wouldn't be able to argue about it because everyone agrees, which is just a bad thing. We'd want to argue and figure out which candidate is actually better. Although the electronic age makes official surveillance easier, only wrongdoers need to be worried. Strongly disagree. Privacy is a huge thing. Privacy should always be allowed, and there, you should always be able to have personal privacy. The death penalty should be an option for the most serious crimes. Strongly disagree. I don't think the death penalty should exist at all anywhere. Although it is pretty funny that I used to get scared of the death penalty. I used to be scared and say to myself, I'm never going to these states, these U.S. states, because they have the death penalty, and if I accidentally do something that warrants the death penalty, I'm going to die. Which is just funny. I didn't really understand how laws worked or anything. But yeah, strongly disagree. In a civilized society, one must always have people above to be obeyed and people below to be commanded. That's strongly disagree. No, everyone should be equal. It should be a democratic system. It's, again, pretty obvious. Abstract art that doesn't represent anything shouldn't be considered art at all. Disagree, because the definition of art is... Here, let me look at the definition. The expression or application of human creative skill and imagination, typically in a visual form, such as painting or sculpture. I feel like my definition is a little different than that. Just here, the second definition is a little better. The various branches of creative activity, such as painting, music, literature, and dance. I don't believe it actually has to come from the heart, although whether it's good art or not is a different question. I believe modern art isn't good and abstract art isn't good art, but it's art. In a criminal justice, punishment should be more important than rehabilitation. Strongly disagree. Rehabilitation should be the main focus. although there are some people that can't be rehabilitated, the vast majority can, so it's worth putting in the time. It is a waste of time to try to rehabilitate some criminals, like I just said. Some criminals, yes, but a very few, a very small amount. Most criminals you should be able to rehabilitate. The ones that are like mentally ill, mentally insane, you just can't. The business person and the manufacturer are more important than the writer and the artist. Strongly disagree. The writer and the artist are the ones that are creating the media in the first place. That's pretty obvious. Mothers may have careers, but their first duty is to be homemakers. Strongly disagree. Sexist question this time. Um, Multinational companies are unethically exploiting the plant genetic resources of developing countries. Yeah, strongly agree. We're doing that a lot, and not even us as a country. It's the multinational companies doing it. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity. Strongly disagree. We should actively debate the establishment and disagree, which is the same as the one-party state question. Astrology accurately explains many things. Strongly disagree. That's pretty stupid. You cannot be moral without being religious. Strongly disagree. You can be moral without being religious. Pretty obvious. Charity is better than social security as a means of helping the genuinely disadvantaged. Strongly disagree. Charity is almost always, a lot of the cut goes to the owners of the charity. It's not good. Some people are unnaturally unlucky. Strongly disagree. Superstition. It is important that my child's school instills religious values. That's the separation of church and state should be. It's a good thing. I strongly disagree. Don't do that to your school unless your school is actively a religious school. I think it's fine to have religious schools as long as they're still teaching the same things normal schools are. Finally, look at sex. Sex outside marriage is usually immoral. Strongly disagree. You just do whatever you want. A same-sex couple in a stable, loving relationship should not be excluded from the possibility of child adoption. Strongly agree. They should obviously be able to adopt. That's just homophobic if you say no. Pornography depicting consenting adults should be illegal for the adult population. Strongly agree. It is currently legal, and I think it should stay that way. What goes on in a private bedroom between consenting adults is no business of the state. Strongly agree. It's no business of the state. It doesn't have to do with them at all. No one can feel naturally homosexual. Strongly disagree. Again, a homophobic question. Pretty obvious. It's not like they just decide one day, I'm going to be homosexual. It's a thing that you realize. These days, openness about sex has gone too far. Strongly disagree. Openness about sex is a good thing, generally. And that's it. I am lib left, very far down there. That's fair. Yeah, that's, if you understand a political compass, this should make sense. If you don't, it's left, libertarian, right, authoritarian. It's just the 4 different quadrants. My square is lib left, which I don't completely agree with. Again, a lot of these questions were worded incorrectly. Or not incorrectly, but not well. And there are, if I go to the Wikipedia page, which I'm pulling up now, there is an entire section for criticism and alternative models, which I think the real political compass, or the better political compass, should be. Which one is it? There's one that's just a little triangle, which I think is a way better model. But it's basically a triangle with libertarian, left, and then right, which is better than a little square, in my opinion. But there are a lot of alternative models. There are a lot of alternative ways to decide, and that doesn't have to do with the test even. The test itself has a lot of other problems. But even if the questions, or even if the result is this, which I don't necessarily completely agree with, the questions hopefully gave you a good look at my political beliefs and how I view policies and everything. I believe that's the end of the podcast. I don't think I have anything else planned. So, um, I will be having a few guests on. I don't know exactly what day of the week this video or this podcast will be releasing, but I am planning a current events video with one of my friends and a debate video with somebody I know. We have a lot of topics for debate, which we might have the audience vote on if there is ever an audience for this podcast, which I honestly don't believe there will be. But in the case that there is an audience, I will do polls where the audience can choose what our debate is on. We have a whole list of them. I've got a couple people that I'm planning on debating with on the podcast. I got a couple of people I'm planning about talking about current events with on the podcast. But for now, I think that's the end of the episode. So next time should be a current events episode with a special guest who I won't disclose until then. But until then, have a good day, and I'll see you next time.